Thank you to Wise for sponsoring this video. Use the link down below to transfer the equivalent of up to 500 British pounds into yen or another currency for free. I seriously can't believe we're in Japan right now. Right? First things first, gotta exchange some money to leverage that sweet, sweet exchange rate. What was the rate again? Like $1 to 150 yen? Let's see, $1 to 158 yen, my friend. We are going to be living like kings. Oh, there's the bank. Let's go. いらっしゃいませ。こんにちは。ドルを番号を取ってからおかけになってお待ちください。あ、はい。73. Okay. 17番の方どうぞ。73番の方どうぞ。Finally. 大変お待たせしました。はい。この1000ドルを日本円に変えたいです。かしこまりました。It's like getting an extra $500 for free. So crazy. 14万8000円になりますが、よろしいでしょうか？はい。No, 15万8000円です。市場の為替レートで計算しますとそうなりますが、当店では独自のレートを使っておりますので、独自のレート。そうです。ご了承ください。Dude, did she just say 148,000 yen? That's like 8 karage teishoku and 5 miso ramen in conversion fees. I think it's a misunderstanding. There's no way. それから手数料を引くと最終金額が14万5000円になります。いや、先ほど当店のレートと手数料は別々です。Dude, that's like 5 tamago sando and 10 ebimayo onigiri. Let's go somewhere else. Yeah, okay. すみません。両替をやめます。コンビニに行って、お金を引き出します。かしこまりました。ちなみに、海外で作ったカードですと、コンビニの手数料は約3500円であって、一度に引き出せる金額は3万円ぐらいですので、That's like 9 oyakodon and 15 katsukare. Did you say 24 oyakodon? So you want to make the most of your money while you're in Japan and eat more of those sweet oyakodon or sushi or miso ramen or whatever it might be, then I highly recommend that you check out Wise. I've been using Wise for years, but they recently updated the way that they work in Japan, and now you can send even more money within Japan within a single transfer. So when I saw that update, I reached out to them and I was like, I love you guys. I love your service. Would you be interested in working with this American YouTuber living in Japan? And they were like, yeah, let's do it. If you live in Japan or you're about to start living in Japan, maybe study abroad or the JET program, or maybe you're going to travel here in the near future for just a couple of weeks, I would highly recommend that you watch until the end of the video because it could save you a ton of money and time and energy. For those that don't know, Wise is basically an online service that allows you to easily convert money into different currencies at a very competitive rate, and then to hold that money and transfer it into a different bank account that you use, or even spend it directly from within your Wise account. I make the majority of my money as an American YouTuber in Japan. Most of it comes from Patreon and YouTube. And that means that every single time I make a purchase in Japan, I've had to first convert that money from US dollars into Japanese yen. And I have to pay for my mortgage for my house and my groceries and, my kids' school supplies and on and on and on. If I'm not converting with a service that's very competitive and very cheap and very easy to use, then that means that I'm losing a ton of money and time every single month. I used to use PayPal for this. I would get paid from Patreon to my PayPal account, and then I would send that money from within my PayPal account to my local Japanese bank account. I just assumed that I was getting a decent competitive rate, but I almost never was, not even by a long shot. And it wasn't until later when I discovered Wise, Transferwise again at that time, that I realized I was losing hundreds of dollars each month in conversion fees. And this is because a lot of these financial institutions will, like in the video, they'll have their own rate, which actually isn't the current market rate. If the actual rate is $1 to 155 yen or 158 yen like it was in that video, a lot of financial institutions might say, oh yeah, like our market rate for the dollar to yen is $1 to 150 yen. And you might not even realize that unless you read the fine print. And this is what kind of distinguishes Wise from a lot of these other services. They always use the market rate, and they're always really transparent about that. They'll even tell you when they're not the cheapest option. But in the overwhelming majority of cases, they are. And again, the thing that I really want to stress as someone who lives in Japan and has to deal with the nightmare that is the Japanese banking system is that Wise is so easy to use. It operates exactly as you would expect a modern financial tech app to work. If I wanted to transfer money in a Japanese bank, well, you guys have probably seen that Japanese banks video I made a few years back. It's rough. I never like going into Japanese banks. But with Wise, I can do it essentially instantly on my phone. I just put in my American bank details and say I want to convert this amount of money into Japanese yen. It'll do it instantly. Then I can keep it in my Wise account, or I can send it to my local Japanese account and it'll be there in minutes. It saved me not only a ton of money, but so much time and energy. And if you use the link in the description below, you can transfer the equivalent of 500 British pounds into Japanese yen for free. So again, if you need to transfer a total of $1,500 or 1,500 British pounds for your trip to Japan, you can take off a third of the conversion fees using the affiliate link down in the description below. So that's one less trip to the Japanese bank and more money in your pocket for oyakodon or crane games or miso ramen or whatever it might be. But you might be thinking, okay, but then isn't the yen just stuck in my phone? How do I actually use that in my trip in Japan? That's where this comes in. This is the Wise Platinum debit card. You can apply directly for this within the app. It's super easy to apply for and it'll be at your house in no time. And then when you make a purchase within Japan, it'll use the yen that you've already converted at that very competitive rate to make the purchase. You can, pay for something in Lawson or something like that with this at a Japanese convenience store. It's probably gonna be a lot cheaper than using your credit card from back home, which probably has kind of a premium when it comes to exchange rates and making transactions overseas. But you might be thinking, yeah, but Japan is a cash-based society, so like this, a card won't take me that far, but this actually isn't true. If you're a tourist, the overwhelming majority of restaurants these days, they actually do accept credit cards. There are many instances in which you do need to pay in cash, but these are typically going to be for people that live in Japan. Like if I have to pay for like my kids' sports class or something like that. In the rare instances in which you go to like a restaurant where you do need cash, you can withdraw up to 30,000 yen. So in dollars, that's about $200 right now. You can withdraw up to $200 from the equivalent of that in yen from your Wise account for free from the local ATM network here in Japan. And then if you do need any more cash, then again, you can use that same ATM network and this card and withdraw it at a very, very competitive fee that's gonna be probably way cheaper than, again, like an American credit card from back home. And the last thing that I'd like to mention is that Wise recently got a certification in Japan that allows its users to send even more money in one go than before. Up until recently, you could only send 999,999 yen in one go. That's about $6,000 or $7,000 right now. And you might be thinking, well, that's plenty. Like, why would I ever need to spend more than that? But I actually did need to spend more than that. When I bought this house, I had to put down a down payment and I had to transfer a whole lot of money. And Wise was really useful for that, but I had to do it in a bunch of smaller transfers. And it would have been even more expensive to go through like the local banks here, and it would have been a nightmare because I probably would have had to go in and get like verification to raise the amount that I needed to. Anyway, you can now use Wise to transfer up to 150 million yen in one go, and that's about $1 million US. That's way more money than most of us will ever have, but it's less about you can now transfer this much and more about you can transfer way more than you could before. Again, I could have made that down payment in one go. If you're moving to Japan and you need to transfer your life savings, you can do that in one step. If you need to buy a car in Japan and send a bunch of money from back home to Japan, or if you're a parent living back in the States and you got to pay for your child's education, they're going to college in Japan, Wise could be a really good option for that. What used to require multiple transaction fees now only requires one transaction fee at that same cost. It's just kind of like this one little additional thing that Wise is doing to make life easier for its users, people like me that regularly have to send money from one currency to another, and it's really appreciated. Now, before I close, I think it might be worth very briefly talking about Bitcoin, because every time I talk about Wise, someone brings up Bitcoin and they say, well, why don't you use Bitcoin? You could just use Bitcoin for that instead of Wise, and you could do it for free and it would be instant. And the reason that I don't is because it's a little bit too sticky for me. As an American living in Japan, I have to deal with both the IRS and the local Japanese tax system. There's been differences in my understanding in the way that they treat Bitcoin as an asset. On top of that, there's the security concerns. I don't think it was Bitcoin, but the whole like Sam Bankman-Fried thing that happened like a year or two ago, that whole cryptocurrency. bubble, that was quite scary as a father that has expenses to be paid. And speaking of which, again, it's the volatility as well. That's also a major concern for me. Bitcoin might be a little bit cheaper, but unless you're doing it instantaneously and you know all the rules and regulations that surround it and you're 100% confident about the security and stuff like that, for me, it's just a little bit too, again, sticky for me personally. And I'll also add that there are certain brokerage firms such as Interactive Brokers. That's what I use to invest my money, to buy stocks and buy bonds and that kind of thing, that have some really good options for converting money and sending money as well. I've personally found that it's a little bit more complicated. I find myself, whenever I use Interactive Brokers to convert money, kind of like having to Google the whole process online. I think they've made some improvements, but with Wise, again, it's like convert this much amount of dollars into this much yen, execute, the money will be in your account in approximately 4 minutes. It's just like, thank you, this is so easy. So even though Wise might be a little bit more expensive, generally speaking, it's way cheaper than all the other options, and it's way easier to use than any other service I've ever encountered. So that's why I always end up using Wise. Again, Wise is just a truly fantastic service, and I'm really glad that I'm able to make this video with them. Wise has saved me so much money and time and energy and headaches over the years. And I know that these days it can be quite difficult to see like when a creator is being genuine about like a sponsored product and stuff like that. It's like, are they just saying this? Do they actually use the product or not? I actually use Wise and I love it. And I want more people to know about it because I think that it could just save a lot of people a lot of money and we could all use some more money. So thank you again to Wise for sponsoring this video, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Sayonara.